Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping straight into the action from the 2025 Bahrain Grand Prix at Sakir, focusing on those first two practice sessions.
Yeah, FP1 and FP2. We've got the Formula One YouTube transcripts, plus a pretty detailed written review to work from.
Exactly. So our mission here is really to cut through the noise, go beyond just the timing sheets.
Right. Give you the key insights, what's really happening with the teams, the drivers, what storylines are maybe starting to emerge for the weekend.
We know you want to get up to speed quickly, but properly understand what went down. So let's get into it.
Okay. FP1.
Yeah. And the first thing that just jumped out was the number of, fresh faces, rookies in the cars. Almost felt like a test session in some ways.
It really did. I mean, you had Ryo Hayakawa driving both an Alpine and a Haas at different points.
Wow.
Yeah. Felipe Drugovich was in the Aston, Luke Browning for Williams, Frederick Vesti in the Merc, a Ferrari Jr. in the other Haas, having Verstappen's Red Bull.
Quite the lineup.
And the key thing, I think, is that this was at Sakir, a track everyone knows inside out from preseason testing. So it's a proper benchmark for these guys.
Yeah, good point. And speaking of benchmarks, Luke Browning, P13 for Williams. That's pretty eye-catching for a first go in an official session, isn't it?
It definitely is. Finishing P13, that suggests he got comfortable pretty quickly with the car, the environment. Teams look at that.
Right, adaptability.
Exactly. How quickly can they get up to speed under pressure? It's valuable info beyond just the raw lap time.
Now, it wasn't all smooth running. We had that slightly odd moment with Yuki Tsunoda in the pit lane. Looked a bit lost finding his box.
Yeah, seemed like maybe a little confusion there, and then Alex Albon had to hit the brakes pretty sharpish to avoid him.
Yeah, close call.
Those little things, they seem minor, but they can mess up a whole session plan if a stop gets disrupted. Shows the pressure, I guess.
And Albon's day didn't get much easier, did it? He had that near miss with Browning later on going into turn 13.
That looked hairy. Browning had to react really quickly there. Sounds like Albon might have got a late call to pit or something.
Put him on a weird line, maybe.
Yeah, and with these cars, sudden changes, high downforce, it can get dicey fast. Good reactions from Browning saved that one.
And adding to Albon's woes, he was apparently quite vocal about his brakes not feeling right.
Oh, yeah. That's not what you want in Bahrain.
No, with all those heavy braking zones, confidence is everything.
We're absolutely critical. If you don't trust the brakes there, you just can't attack the corners properly. Definitely something they'd need to sort out.
Okay, on a more positive track, upgrades. We saw quite a few teams bringing bits. McLaren, Red Bull, Haas had some circuit-specific stuff. And Ferrari had more general changes, especially it seems around the floor. Why is the floor always such a focus?
Well, it's just fundamental to how these ground effect cars work, Managing that airflow underneath the car generates a huge chunk of the overall downforce.
Right, for grip.
Exactly. So improvements there tend to translate pretty well across different corner types, different tracks. It suggests Ferrari are looking for, a core performance step.
And Lewis Hamilton in that upgraded Ferrari seemed a bit tricky for him initially in FE1. He was struggling a bit, but then popped up into P3.
Yeah, that's pretty typical when you bolt new parts on. Sometimes takes a while to find the sweet spot in the setup to make them work.
So the potential is there, maybe?
The fact he ended up P3 suggests, the upgrades have potential. They probably found something during the session. It's not always just instant speed.
We also saw some of the regulars pushing, like Oscar Piastri running wide at the last corner. Lando Norris dipped a wheel in the gravel at turn 4.
Yeah, that's FP1 for you, isn't it? Finding the limit, seeing where the edge of the track really is. Bahrain can bite you if you stray too far.
Good feedback for them, I suppose?
Definitely. You need to know exactly how much curb you can use, where the grip drops off.
That's quite something.
It is. Very impressive from Bortolito. But, FP1 times, you always have to take them with a pinch of salt. Different fuel loads, tire plans.
True. And Verstappen's stand-in, Agasa, was further back after looking quick early on.
Right, which probably means his plan shifted, maybe focusing on longer runs or collecting data rather than just pure quali-sim pace later in the session. The headline time isn't always the full story.
One last thing from FP1. Poor Kimi Antonelli. Only managed 3 laps. Sounds like a power unit issue.
Oh, that's tough. Especially for a rookie needing mileage. Losing that track time really hurts your weekend preparation. Reliability is just so key.
Okay, let's shift gears then. FP2.
Right. Regular drivers back in, conditions getting a bit more like qualifying and the race. You could sort of feel the focus sharpen.
Yeah, definitely felt more representative. And interesting to see both Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen having moments at turn 10, running a bit wide.
Turn 10, it can catch you out, especially when you start pushing harder, finding those limits in FP2.
Even Verstappen, with his record here. He's got the lap record, won the last 2 races.
Yeah, even Max isn't immune. Shows they're all searching for that last 100th, and sometimes you just step over the line a tiny bit.
But the absolute standout moment from FP2 has got to be Fernando Alonso.
Oh, yeah. The steering wheel.
It just came off.
Literally. He was already on the radio saying it felt loose, apparently. Then coming out of turn 10, boom, it's just in his hand.
While he's still moving at speed.
Yeah. Trying to wrestle it back onto the column, the screen flickering on and off.
It was bizarre.
Team thinks it might have been the quick release mechanism failing.
Wow. Can you maybe just briefly explain how that quick release is supposed to work for people who might not know?
Sure. So, think of it like a super precise locking system. You've got these ball bearings inside the wheel hub.
Okay.
And they lock into grooves on the steering column.
Nah.
There's a spring-loaded collar the driver pulls to release those bearings, lets them take the wheel off to get in or out.
Right. Essential for getting out quickly.
Exactly. But when it's engaged, it should be absolutely solid, rock solid. Shouldn't move at all, no matter how hard they turn.
So for it to just detach like that, without him pulling the release, points to a pretty serious failure somewhere in that locking part.
Absolutely. Something inside that mechanism must have broken or malfunctioned. Maybe a component failed, maybe something wasn't aligned right. And the electrical connection cutting out, too, adds another layer. It just shows how complex these things are.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a fundamental control failing. Not exactly ideal prep.
Understatement of the year. Losing all that track time in FP2 while they investigated in the garage, that's a massive setback for Aston and Alonso. Really puts a question mark over their reliability going forward this weekend.
He wasn't the only one having moments, though. Norris and Piastri both went deep into turn 1 again.
Yeah, heavy braking zone there, easy to lock up.
Albon had another off-track excursion. George Russell had what was called a loop-to-loop at turn 10. Sounds dramatic.
Yeah, loop-to-loop probably means a bit of a spin or getting way out of shape. Maybe too eager on the power or misjudged the entry. Turn 10 again.
And we saw Russell and Norris flirting with the gravel at turn 4 too. Hulkenberg ran wide at the end. Even Hadjar getting annoyed with Hulkenberg on their long runs. Just lots going on.
It really paints a picture of Bahrain, doesn't it? Demanding track, punishes mistakes. Turn 1 lockups, turn 10 mistakes. Drivers getting edgy during long runs because traffic ruins their data. It shows how constantly on the limit they are.
And Lewis Hamilton, back in the Ferrari, pushing hard again. Went deep at turn 4, finished P8 in the end. How did that compare to Leclerc in P4, considering the upgrades?
P8 for Hamilton. It's okay, but Leclerc being up in P4 does make you wonder. The review mentioned Hamilton's long run was a bit inconsistent.
Ah, right.
Yeah, some quick laps, some slower ones, final lap way off. Maybe traffic, maybe still trying to get the setup right with those new parts for consistent race pace. It suggests they're still figuring things out, perhaps.
But the team that really looked strong in FP2 was McLaren. Piastri P1, Norris P2. George Russell best of the rest in P3. Yeah, that looks very promising for them.
It really does. That's a statement performance in FP2, having both cars right at the top. Suggests the car is working well here, balanced, upgrades clicking maybe.
But it is only Friday practice.
Exactly. Always the caveat. But it's a very positive start for them. Need to see if they can carry it through.
Now, this review dug into the long run pace, which is always tricky on the softs with degradation, but compared Norris, Russell, Verstappen, and Alonso using F1 tempo data. What did that show?
Okay, so the data was interesting. Norris apparently started his soft run really fast, like proper initial pace.
Okay.
Russell wasn't quite as quick out of the blocks, but his pace was super consistent, really stable lap times.
Interesting contrast.
Yeah. And Verstappen, he started a bit slower than Norris, but his degradation seemed really low. Like the lap times weren't climbing as quickly.
Yeah.
Suggests good tire management.
And Alonso.
Alonso was quick too, but you have to remember his tires were fresher because he'd lost time with the steering wheel thing, and his run was shorter, so harder to compare directly.
And the review noted Norris and Russell's times were generally climbing.
Yeah, that classic upward trend you see as the softs wear out. So it highlights that trade-off, doesn't it? Initial speed versus keeping the tires alive.
So putting that together, potential contenders, McLaren obviously looks fast, Mercedes with Russell seems solid, but Red Bull, the review called them a complicated Red Bull. What's that about?
Complicated Red Bull. I think that probably means they just haven't quite nailed the setup yet. Despite Max's history here, maybe the car isn't quite in the window they want. The long run looked good, but the outright pace wasn't maybe what we expected compared to McLaren's initial burst.
And Ferrari. Mixed signals.
A bit, yeah. Leclerc P4 looks good. Hamilton P8 maybe less so. Still maybe trying to unlock the full potential of those upgrades consistently across both cars over a distance. Aston, well, Alonso's issue aside, they didn't look like front runners on pace. Sets up an interesting picture, doesn't it? Several teams potentially in the fight.
What about further back? Racing Bulls?
Yeah.
Hajar P6 and FP2, that's pretty good. Sauber, Alpine maybe struggling a bit more.
Yeah, Hajar P6 is a nice result for Racing Bulls. Shows a car might be decent here, or he's just adapting very well. Sauber and Alpine, yeah, seemed a bit further off the pace. They'll have work to do overnight for sure.
The analysis in the review then sort of zoomed in on Norris, Russell, and Verstappen's long runs, leaving Hamilton out because his was a bit messy. What was the takeaway there?
The analysts reckon Russell might have had the most balanced run overall. Decent pace, good consistency. Verstappen maybe slightly slower on average lap time, but potentially better on tire wear, which could be huge in the race. And they also noted Norris might have hit traffic, so his underlying pace could be even stronger than the time showed. Suggests it could be really close between those three teams on race pace.
And Leclerc did his long run on the medium tire, right? Was that significant?
Yeah, that's definitely worth noting. His medium run was apparently more consistent lap time-wise than the guys on the softs. That could be really important for race strategy, understanding how that medium compound behaves over a long stint in these conditions. Piastri did some running on hards and mediums too, but shorter bursts, less useful for comparing long runs directly.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up for everyone listening. If we boil down this deep dive into FP1 and FP2, key takeaways seem to be McLaren definitely looks strong out of the gate.
Yep, very strong start.
Red Bull, maybe some questions there. Not quite clicking perfectly yet, perhaps.
Yeah, that complicated tag seems apt for now.
Mercedes, especially Russell, looking potentially quite good, maybe benefiting from the cooler evening conditions.
Consistent pace from Russell, definitely in the mix.
Ferrari. Upgrades seem okay, but maybe still working out how to maximize them. Bit of a difference between Leclerc and Hamilton sessions.
Still a bit of a puzzle there, yeah.
And Aston Martin facing some hurdles, topped off by that absolutely wild steering wheel moment for Alonso. That's the big talking point.
Oh, absolutely. You won't forget that image quickly. So yeah, we've tried to give you more than just the fastest laps, the rookies, the upgrades, the long runs, the drama.
Right. So here's something for you to think about as we head towards qualifying and the race. With all this in mind, McLaren's pace, the Red Bull questions, Mercedes' consistency, Ferrari's upgrade integration, Aston's troubles, and that steering wheel. What single thing do you think will be the biggest factor deciding how things shake out?
Is it going to be pure car performance, driver consistency? Who gets the upgrades working best under pressure? Or could something completely unexpected, like another mechanical failure, just flip the whole script?
Lots to chew on. Hopefully this dive gives you a richer way to watch the rest of the Bahrain Grand Prix weekend unfold.